Title: The Queen Who Was Banished for Love, returned when the throne wept. She left the kingdom in silence, trading her crown for heartbreak. Years later, as the empire crumbled under sorrow, a familiar figure appeared at the gates, the queen the throne once rejected. Hello, Moonlight family. Welcome back to Moonlight Romance Stories. If you're new here, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic stories filled with betrayal, power, and transformation. And to all my loyal viewers, thank you for always lighting up the Moonlight world with your support. Let's dive back into the story. Episode 1: The Banishment. The Great Hall of Ilarion had never been so silent. Queen Arisel stood alone in the center, her golden crown catching the torchlight like a curse. The High Council surrounded her in a ring of judgment, their faces carved from cold marble. Beyond them, her husband, King Theron, sat motionless on the throne that had once been her pride, now her executioner. "Your Majesty," Lord Halric declared, voice echoing against the stone walls, "you stand accused of betrayal, consorting with a man of no title, no name. The Queen of Ilarion has broken the sacred bond of royal blood." The court gasped. Arisel's fingers trembled, but her voice did not. "If love is betrayal," she said softly, "then the throne itself has betrayed the heart of every soul that ever served it." Whispers erupted like a storm. King Theron's eyes flickered with something, sorrow, or fear, before he rose. "Arisel of Valen," he said, his tone brittle as glass, "by decree of the crown, you are hereby banished from Ilarion. Never again shall you set foot upon royal ground." For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then the guards moved. They tore the royal pendant from her neck and opened the great doors to the night. The wind howled through the hall like mourning spirits. Arisel turned one last time toward her husband. His eyes shimmered, not with anger, but guilt. As she stepped beyond the threshold, the ground rumbled. Torches fell. The chandeliers swayed. A deep, thunderous crack echoed through the marble floor. The king staggered and collapsed upon the steps of the throne. Gasps filled the air as the royal crown slipped from his head, rolling across the floor until it stopped at Arisel's feet, and split clean in two. The guards froze. The court murmured prayers. Arisel bent, lifted the broken crown and whispered, her voice steady, haunting, and filled with prophecy, "The throne has begun to weep." The torches flickered out. The last sound was the throne itself, groaning, as if alive. To be continued. Episode 2: The Forest of Exile. The night swallowed Queen Arisel as the palace vanished behind her. The forest loomed ahead, vast, whispering, and alive with secrets. The air was colder here, heavy with mist that curled like breath from unseen mouths. Each step sank into moss, damp and soft as memory. She clutched the broken crown to her chest, its edges biting her palms, yet she could not let go. The stories of Ilarion had always spoken of this place, the Forest of Exile, where the truth of hearts was revealed, and no lie could survive the wind. But those were tales told to frighten children. Now, stripped of her title and home, Arisel found herself walking into the myth. A rustle ahead made her stop. Through the veil of fog, a faint light flickered, not torchlight, but something softer, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then a voice came, deep and calm. "You should not carry what's broken, my queen." From between the trees stepped a man cloaked in gray, his hair silver as moonlight, his eyes knowing. "Who are you?" Arisel demanded. "I am Elion," he said, bowing slightly, "a keeper of truths and watcher of what the throne hides." His gaze drifted to the crown in her hands. "The collapse you saw was no curse, Majesty. It was an awakening." Arisel frowned. "Awakening of what?" "The bond between heart and crown," he said softly. "The kingdom bleeds when love is silenced. The throne weeps because it remembers." The wind sighed through the trees. For a moment, the forest seemed to lean closer, listening. Elyon reached into his satchel and drew forth a small mirror framed in roots and silver. "Look," he whispered. Arisel hesitated, then raised it. But instead of her reflection, she saw King Theron's face, pale, gasping, his eyes wide with fear. Behind him, shadows writhed like living smoke. Her breath caught. "What have you done?" Elyon's voice dropped to a whisper. "Not what I've done, my queen. What you began." The mirror trembled in her hands as the forest's whispers turned to voices calling her name. To be continued. Episode 3. The Dying Throne. The voices in the forest faded, swallowed by the hush of dawn. Queen Arisel still clutched the mirror, its surface rippling like water disturbed by unseen hands. Elyon watched her in silence, the faint light of morning painting gold across his silver hair. "What you saw," he said softly, "was not illusion. The king's life wanes, and with him, the throne." Arisel's heart clenched. "The throne. It weeps, you said. Why?" Elyon turned toward the rising mist. "Because it is bound to the bloodline, not to the crown, but to the truth within it. When deceit rules, the throne sickens." Meanwhile, within the palace walls, chaos had taken root. King Theron lay pale and trembling upon his bed, his breath shallow, his veins darkening like ink beneath his skin. The great marble throne in the hall pulsed faintly, veins of shadow crawling along its base. Servants whispered of curses and divine wrath. But in the council chamber, Lady Serene smiled. Draped in crimson and gold, she addressed the royal advisors with calm authority. "The king's will must not falter," she said, her tone smooth as silk. "Until he recovers, I shall guide Ilarion in his stead." Few dared to oppose her. Those who did found themselves silenced, some through persuasion, others through fear. No one knew that it was Serene who had whispered the lies that condemned Queen Arisel, nor that her ambition reached far beyond counsel. Back in the forest, Elyon knelt beside an ancient stone carved with runes. "The throne lives," he murmured, tracing the markings. "It breathes with the truth of every ruler. When love is cast out, it begins to die." Arisel looked again into the mirror. This time, its light flickered violently, a swirl of shadows and fire. Her reflection vanished, replaced by the image of the throne room. Lady Serene stood before the advisors, holding a child swaddled in royal silk. "This," Serene declared, "is the heir to Ilarion. The blood of the king endures." Arisel's pulse quickened. "That's impossible," she whispered. "The king has no other heir." Elyon's face darkened. "Then the throne will know the lie." The mirror shimmered once more, and from within, the throne's low groan echoed, like a beast awakening from sleep. To be continued. Episode 4. The Hidden Heir. The echo of the throne's groan faded into the cold dawn wind. Queen Arisel lowered the mirror, its glow dimming to silver mist. Elyon's words hung heavy between them. "The throne will know the lie," he had said, and she felt that truth burn within her chest. "I must return," Arisel whispered. "If Serene places a false heir on that throne, the kingdom will drown in shadow." Elyon's expression darkened. "To return is death." "Then I'll die as queen," she answered, and turned toward the path leading out of the forest. By nightfall, she crossed the outer walls of Ilarion disguised as a traveler, her golden hair hidden beneath a hood, her royal gown replaced with coarse linen. The streets she once ruled had changed. Whispers of sickness, of the king's decline, rippled through the market. The people looked thinner, the sky duller. Even the fountains ran slower, as if the city itself were holding its breath. While hiding near the old chapel ruins, she saw him. A boy, no older than 10, with eyes like molten gold. He moved with quiet grace, tending to the wounded and sharing bread with the hungry. Yet when he looked up, something inside her stilled. Those eyes, She had seen them once before, filled with love and defiance, in the man for whom she had lost her crown. "Your name?" she asked softly when she approached. "Cain," the boy said. "The healer says I was left here as a baby on the night the earth shook, the same night of her banishment." Arisel's heart trembled. She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, and for a moment, she saw it, the faint glimmer of royal light beneath his skin. Her forbidden love had not died in vain. Their son lived. Before she could speak, a shadow moved on the rooftops. Elion's warning echoed in her mind. Serane's eyes are everywhere. The boy noticed her fear. "They're watching, aren't they?" Arisel took his hand. "Yes, and we must run." Shouts filled the alley. Steel flashed as palace guards closed in from both ends, their armor gleaming like polished night. Arisel pushed Cain behind her, her breath steady, her heart thundering. Then, without a word, the massive throne room doors at the far end of the corridor swung open by themselves, light spilling out like a river of fire. The guards froze. The air trembled. From deep within the hall, a voice, old, echoing, alive, whispered her name. To be continued. Episode 5. When Thrones Whisper. The air in the corridor shimmered like heat over fire. The great doors stood open, and beyond them the throne room pulsed with light, soft, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Queen Arisel stepped forward slowly, Cain's small hand clutched in hers. Each step echoed through the empty hall, and with every echo came a sound, faint, sorrowful, almost like crying. She froze. The sound wasn't human. It came from the throne itself. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Cain tilted his head, eyes glowing faintly in the golden light. "It's calling to you," he said, his voice distant, dreamlike. As they approached, the once majestic throne of Ilarion now looked frail. Veins of red light crawled through its marble surface, and from its base trickled thin streams of silver dust, like tears falling from stone. Arisel's breath trembled. The throne wept. Then Cain let go of her hand and stepped toward it, drawn as if by an invisible pull. "Cain, stop," she called, but too late. His fingers brushed the armrest. The light flared. His body stiffened. A deep voice, trembling with pain, escaped his lips. The king's voice. "Mother," he whispered hoarsely, eyes blank with light. "They are killing me." Slowly. Arisel fell to her knees beside him. "Theron? No. Cain, speak to me." But his voice was no longer his own. "The false heir feeds on the throne," the voice gasped. "Every lie drains its breath. Every deception feeds her power." And then, silence. Cain's small frame went limp, his golden glow fading to pale. Arisel pulled him close, her tears falling onto his hair. "Hold on, my son," she whispered, though her hands shook. "I will end this." The throne began to groan again, louder now, its light flickering in pulses like a desperate heartbeat. The air filled with whispers, echoing her name, calling her to act. Then, from behind the shattered columns, a figure stepped forward. The same calm, gray-cloaked man who had once guided her through the forest. "Elion," she breathed. "How did you—" He raised his hand and the whispers stopped. The air itself seemed to bow. "I was not only a healer," he said quietly, his eyes glowing with ancient light. "Long before your crown, long before Serane's deceit, I was the first guardian of the throne." The torches flared as if in answer, shadows dancing like spirits awakening. And somewhere deep within the throne, a heartbeat answered him. To be continued. Episode 6. The Guardian's Betrayal. The throne's heartbeat echoed like thunder beneath the marble floor. Arisel held Cain close, her gaze locked on Elion, the man she once trusted, now cloaked in shadows and truth. His eyes, once gentle, burned with the weight of ages. "You were the first guardian," she whispered. Then tell me, why does the throne suffer? Elion's hand lowered, and the whispers fell silent. Because I betrayed it, he said, his voice heavy with remorse. Centuries ago, I bound the throne to the will of kings rather than the will of the heart. It was meant to protect the realm, but it chained the kingdom's soul instead. Arisel rose slowly, her face pale in the golden glow. You cursed it. He nodded. And that curse has fed on every false ruler since. But there is a way to break it. She tightened her hold on Cain. Tell me. Elion's expression darkened. The throne's bond can only be severed through a royal sacrifice. One of true blood must give their life willingly. Silence fell, broken only by the flickering of torches. The queen's heart pounded. Then I am the one it demands. Before Elion could answer, the walls trembled, faint, like a heartbeat beneath stone. He turned sharply toward the direction of the palace's depths. No, the throne's song changes. Someone stirs below. What do you mean? Arisel asked. He looked at her with grave certainty. Your king, he is not dead. Serain never killed him. She hides him beneath the palace, feeding from his life to keep her false heir alive. Arisel's knees weakened. Theron, alive? Elion's gaze softened. If you wish to save the kingdom, you must go below. But beware, my queen. Serain's lies run deeper than you think. Moments later, cloaked in shadow and grief, Arisel descended the hidden stairway beneath the throne. The air grew colder, thick with the stench of iron and damp stone. Torches flickered weakly as she walked deeper into the dungeon's heart. Then, a voice. Arisel. She froze. Two figures sat chained in opposite corners of the cell, both wearing torn royal garments, both bearing the same face, King Theron's face. Arisel, my love, it's me, one gasped. No, the other pleaded, eyes wide with desperation. He's the imposter. I am your true king. Her heart stopped. Two kings, both alive, both bound in chains, and one of them was lying. To be continued. Episode 7. The Twin Kings. The torch in Queen Arisel's trembling hand flickered wildly, its flame throwing shadows that danced like ghosts upon the dungeon walls. Before her, two identical men strained against their chains, both bearing the face, the voice, the pleading eyes of King Theron. Arisel, said the first, his voice low and desperate. Serain's lies run deep. She imprisoned me here to steal the throne's strength. You must free me before the curse consumes us all. The second spoke almost in unison. Do not listen to him, he said, his tone nearly identical, but edged with quiet authority. He's the echo Serain created, a hollow mirror meant to confuse you. Look into my eyes, my love. You know your king. Arisel's heart raced. The air between them felt heavy, charged with magic and deception. Both men carried the same scar over their brow, the same trembling sincerity, even the same memory of the night she was banished. Then she noticed it. Between them, a small pool of water had gathered beneath the dripping stones. Cold, still, mirror-like. She lifted her torch slightly. The first man's reflection shimmered clearly upon the water's surface. The second cast none. Her breath caught. Elion's warning echoed in her mind. Serain's lies run deeper than you think. The reflectionless king spoke again, softly, urgently. Please, Arisel, trust your heart, not your eyes. I am yours. Tears welled in her eyes. The reflection in the pool trembled as she raised the torch higher. Her voice broke. If you are truly Theron, forgive me. With shaking hands, she touched the lock on the chains of the first man, the one whose reflection shone in the water. The shackles released with a metallic sigh. At that instant, the second man, the one without a reflection, began to fade. His form dissolved into rising smoke, his final words echoing like a curse through the chamber. You've freed the wrong one." The torches blew out. Darkness swallowed the dungeon. Above, in the throne room, the ground split with a deafening crack. The throne of Alarion bled golden light from its fissures, streaming like liquid fire across the marble floor. And somewhere deep within that glow, a voice began to scream. To be continued. Episode 8, The Throne's Lament. The golden cracks along the throne deepened, pulsing like veins of living fire. The air trembled with a low hum, as if the palace itself mourned. Arisel stumbled forward, her eyes fixed on the man she had freed, the king reborn, yet somehow not. His voice was the same, his gaze filled with the same warmth she once loved, but when he reached toward the throne, its light recoiled, hissing like a wounded creature. "The throne rejects him," Elyon murmured, his face pale beneath the flickering torches, "because he bears her mark." Arisel's heart clenched. "Serane's?" Elyon nodded grimly. With a wave of his hand, the illusion of perfection peeled away. Beneath the king's skin, faint lines of black fire crawled over his chest, an ancient sigil, the mark of ruin, binding him to the throne's decay. Each heartbeat made the symbol pulse darker, feeding on the light that still flickered through the kingdom's walls. "The curse links his life to the throne's death," Elyon explained. "If it is not broken before dawn, both he and the kingdom will fall." The king reached for Arisel, his voice trembling. "You chose me, now you must save me." Tears welled in her eyes as the throne let out a soft, human-like moan, a lament that shook the banners above them. The golden veins splintered outward, staining the marble floor with light. Arisel dropped to her knees, pressing her hand to the ground as whispers filled the chamber. They weren't echoes, they were memories. The throne was remembering. Then came the faint sound of laughter, a child's laughter. Arisel froze and turned slowly. At the heart of the throne room, Cain sat upon the royal seat, his small hands glowing with ethereal gold. The cracks healed beneath his touch. His eyes burned with the same fire that once filled the true kings. "Mother," he said softly, his voice carrying both innocence and eternity. "The throne has chosen again." The light flared, blinding and pure, as Cain's body merged with the throne's glow. To be continued. Episode 9, The Child of the Throne. The golden light that poured from Cain enveloped the throne room like a river of molten sun. Arisel shielded her eyes, but she felt the energy pulse through her bones, warm and alive, as if the palace itself had been reborn. The whispers from the throne had turned into words, and to her astonishment they came from Cain. "My judgment begins," the child's voice rang, not his own, but the throne's, resonant and terrifying. Each syllable shook the banners, the marble floors, and even the air around them. "Those who have deceived, betrayed, or stolen the kingdom's light shall fall." In the far corner, Lady Serene shrieked and bolted toward the exit, her crimson robes flowing like blood in motion. But as she ran, the royal sigils on the walls, crests, banners, and engraved emblems, crumbled into dust, leaving empty niches and broken stone behind her. The palace itself rejected her presence. The resurrected king staggered, the mark of ruin on his chest flaring violently, scorching the fabric of his tunic. Arisel gasped. Elyon's shadowed eyes met hers with an unspoken confession. "It was I, not Serene," he said, his voice thick with guilt. "I cast the curse centuries ago, binding the throne to the bloodline, twisting it with my magic. I thought I could protect it. I was wrong. Everything that followed is my doing." Arisel's hands clenched Cain's small shoulders. The boy's golden eyes flickered, and the throne's voice rumbled through the chamber. "The bloodline demands choice. A soul must be given to preserve all, or all shall fall." Her chest tightened as the magnitude of the moment pressed down on her. The true king looked at her, terror and hope colliding in his gaze. Elyon bowed his head, silent, knowing he had no right to intervene further. Cain's voice, the throne's voice, filled every corner of the room. "Mother, you must choose." Arisel stepped forward, her heart aching. Every fiber of her being screamed for her son's safety, for her love, for the life of the kingdom she had sworn to protect. Her vision blurred with tears, and she realized the final, impossible truth. The throne demanded her choice. A mother's love, or a kingdom's life. The golden light flared, brighter than ever, casting her shadow across the crumbling banners, the flickering torches, and the broken sigils. The air was alive with judgment, suspense, and the unbearable weight of destiny. To be continued. Episode 10. When the Throne Wept. The golden light of the throne swirled violently, filling the chamber with brilliance so bright that Arisel had to shield her eyes. Cain, seated atop the glowing throne, looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. His small hands rested on the armrests, pulsing with the kingdom's lifeblood. But it was clear, he could not contain it alone. Arisel's heart ached, the weight of the throne's demand pressing down on her like molten stone. The whispers of judgment, the cries of the palace, the golden cracks along the marble, all pointed to a single, inescapable truth. "I cannot let this kingdom fall," she whispered. Her voice trembled, yet carried the unwavering strength of a mother's love. "Cain, live. Be the king you were born to be." She stepped forward, placing her hand over the glowing sigils on the throne. A pulse of energy surged through her, pulling at her very soul. The mark of ruin flared violently, then scattered like stardust, leaving Cain untouched. Arisel's breath caught. The throne's glow enveloped her entirely, golden light reflecting in every polished surface. The chamber shook violently, and golden rain poured from the cracks, streaming down like tears of pure light. The throne wept for the last time, its lament a soft, mournful lullaby that resonated in every stone and heart within the palace. Arisel smiled at Cain, feeling his warmth and life surge with her sacrifice. Then slowly she faded, a final shimmer of gold dissolving into the light. Years passed. The kingdom healed. The palace stood proud and strong once more, and King Cain reigned with wisdom beyond his years. On nights when the moon hung full and silver over the city, the whispers returned, not cries of warning, but a soft lullaby carried by the throne, Arisel's voice singing to guide him, to remind him of love, courage, and sacrifice. On the night of Cain's coronation, the hall was filled with golden banners and the shimmer of torchlight. The new king knelt before the throne, the weight of the crown heavy in his hands. And then he froze. Beside the throne appeared a woman in white, her presence ethereal and radiant. The crowd gasped. Her reflection was missing entirely in the polished floor beneath her. She smiled, calm and knowing, her gaze meeting Cain's. The whispers of the throne grew louder, entwined with the gentle tone of her voice. "The kingdom is safe. For now." A chill ran through the hall. The throne had remembered, the sacrifice had been honored, and yet, the final twist lingered in the air, as if the story of Arisel was not yet finished. The end, or a new beginning.